Praise God for another beautiful day to play some chess. Hello everybody and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be taking a look at two of the recent games that I've played, both of which I think are a pretty good showing of my skill level at 1100 ELO. The first game we're going to look at is me absolutely dominating the French defense. I have a brilliant sacrifice. I felt pretty good about it because I played this game at 1 o'clock in the morning before I went to bed. I would not recommend doing that, but I felt pretty good tucking myself into bed that night knowing that I made a brilliant sacrifice seconds before going to sleep. And before we look at that brilliant game, I quickly wanted to say that I do have channel memberships live here on the channel. It's a great way to support me and the content that I make every single day here for you. If you are interested, you get a lot of cool perks. I'm trying to make it super worth your value, a lot of bang for your buck if you do want to support me in the channel. Custom loyalty badges, emojis, members only videos, and polls. You will get credited at the end of the videos if you become a member. I just wanted to make you aware of that. That is something that does exist on the channel now. So if you do, thank you so much. If you don't, I hope you enjoy the free content that I'm going to continue putting out. With that out of the way, let's jump into this first game against Coti_72, and Coti comes out here with the French defense. And I'm obviously trying to play my Italian game, but when I noticed the French defense is coming out here, I decided to take control of the center of the board. That's always a great idea when your opponent is going to give you the center, and so I do take it. He decides to push up, kind of finalizing the Caro-Kann triangle, or the French defense triangle that happens a lot of the time. I push up my E-pawn and he counters, pushing up his C-pawn. Now I'm in this position where I recognize that this is the French defense. I have been on the flip side of this board many times, and I was trying to think to myself, what do I hate dealing with in this position? And the thing that I decided was I hate dealing with the pawns continuing to push up. I hate seeing this closed position. It seems to give white a lot of breathing room, and it seems to restrict black a lot of the time. And so that's what I did. And when my opponent comes out here and plays the knight, I'm like, okay, this is even more interesting to me because I was expecting maybe the knight to come out, maybe the queen to come over, something that is a little bit more typical to see in the French defense, at least when I play it. But when my opponent brings the knight over here to defend the d5 pawn, I'm like, okay, well, I don't actually care too much about that. I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on the d pawn, gonna see what happens if he decides to counter or not. We're still at a very even game here. And when he decides to take back, I decide to take and develop my light bishop. This is great because he is taking a pawn, but giving me more development in the position. I feel pretty good about that. My D pawn is double defended by my knight and by my queen. Even though he's attacking twice, he's gonna end up losing the pawn and giving me a lot more center control if he initiates that trade. He doesn't. He decides to throw his knight into the middle of the board, and this is an inaccuracy. His best move was actually c takes d4, so he was supposed to take this. This is the best move in the position. I'm supposed to take back, knight takes d4. You can also offer the queen trade here, which is also okay. It kind of keeps the position very neutral, very 50-50 for both black and white. But because my opponent did not take the d pawn and decided to push his knight further to the center of the board, it wasn't an accuracy, and I decided to bring my knight over to the other side of the board. My thought here was, this is defended by my dark bishop. If he pushes a pawn up, I can take it. If he takes with the pawn, I can jump back here. If he takes with the knight, he's just moving the same piece 3 or 4 times in the opening, so I felt pretty confident about this. Bishop taking the knight was slightly better. Yes, we are giving this pawn up, but that's okay because we still have a lot of central influence. Our knights have a lot of protection over the center of the board here. For myself, personally, I just didn't like the idea of trading my bishop off this early in the game, and that's why I opted to have my knight move over to the g5 square. Again, I've got a lot of protection on this f square here. If he decides to push up, I can take, he can take, I can run away, I can take this pawn, I can do all sorts of fun stuff with this. Guys, it is time for the verse of the day today. Today's verse comes from Proverbs chapter 17, verse 14, and it says, "Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam, so drop the matter before a dispute breaks out." Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam is the most true fact thing I've read in the Bible in a very long time. I am not somebody who likes to have a lot of squabbling or quarrels or disagreements with people, and breaching a dam is how I feel when that happens in my life. Dropping things and letting them roll off your back, it feels like a superpower. I cannot tell you how many times I've just felt peace when somebody does something and I, for a moment, am like, like, that really sucks. I wish that person didn't do that thing. And then I'm like, it doesn't actually matter that much. And I live a much more peaceful, happy life in doing that. This verse was very encouraging to me. I hope it is encouraging to you. Try not to let people or things of this world bother you. Do not start quarrels. Do not squabble with others. Just let it roll off your back and enjoy the day. And with that being said, let's jump back into this match that has a brilliant sacrifice. And when my opponent pushes up h6, which is a good move in this position, I decide to sacrifice the knight. This is a brilliant move, and the reason being is because he needs to take the knight with his king, otherwise he is going to lose a rook, and nobody wants to lose a rook before the 10th move of a game. So my opponent does take the bait, and I immediately put him into check with my queen. This is very good. This is very nice. This is wonderful. The reason being because now I have 3 pieces looking at this knight on the D square. I'm very happy to be ahead on material and put the opponent back into check, cause the opponent to make another mistake potentially because they get a little bit flustered. And so when my opponent does move over, I have a couple of options here. Because this is an inaccuracy, I can now put my opponent back into check with my knight, which is going to force them to move again, or they could take back and then I can take with the queen, offering a trade, which wouldn't be particularly good, or I could take back with the bishop, and now taking back with the bishop means I'm gonna have another attacking opportunity on the f7 square if the king doesn't move. If he takes back with the queen, that's just a blunder. He's gonna be losing the queen. So what ends up happening after the king moves over is I do take with my knight, putting the opponent back into check immediately. He decides to take back with the pawn, and I do take back with the bishop. Obviously this is defended, so his queen cannot take it back. And my thought process here is if he decides to move his bishop to counterattack this, I can take the pawn. I now get a basically free rook, or at least win a pawn back in material, being even in material, even though the position is absolutely crushing. And that is exactly what happens. He makes another mistake, moving his bishop over to e6. This is not very good. I am able to infiltrate. My opponent then takes this queen, which is actually an excellent move. Knight to d7 was slightly better. I don't know the intricacies of why this is slightly better, but it is. We're just going to accept that chess.com is smarter than I am in most cases. But when he takes the hanging d pawn with his queen, this gives me an opportunity to win a free rook. We now have a check given to me by the queen, and this position is kind of interesting. I'm not really sure what my opponent wanted to accomplish with this, because now I'm ahead on material. He's throwing his queen in front of me, but I have so many options in this position. I can defend with the queen, getting a queen trade, which is going to be fine for me because I'm up on material. I can defend with the dark bishop, which is going to mean, yeah, sure, you can do this, but I'm just going to castle defending my rook. Or I can even throw my light bishop in front of you, and now what are you going to do? You can't do anything anymore. So all around, putting me into check wasn't that good with his queen, and recognizing that I'm ahead on material, I did decide to throw my queen in front, saying, hey, let's dance, give me the queens, I'm ahead of material, your king is pushed off, cannot castle. I'm feeling pretty good about this position. My opponent then develops their knight, coming in to try and defend a little bit, coming in to say, hey, I just want to make sure that you know I exist. I'm here. I'm going to try to stop some of the things that you're trying to do to me. So I decided to castle, knowing that once this happens, I'm going to be able to bring my rook over to the e file. This is going to pin the bishop. I've also got my dark bishop on at least somewhat of an active square. I mean, it hasn't developed yet, but the king being on a dark square is going to benefit me in this moment at the very least. My opponent decides to push his pawn up, which is going to kind of stop me from moving my dark bishop, but I still have other attacking options, even moving my dark bishop over to the e file before bringing this out, getting my other rook on the c file, allowing me to attack and have that defended. There's a lot of things that can happen in this position that are not bad moves by any means, but I decide to just develop my rook. After I move my rook over though, my opponent gets the knight involved, threatening my bishop, which isn't really much of a threat. I'm totally fine to get some sort of a trade if I don't move my light bishop. That being said, I can also just attack you and my opponent resign. From this position, I mean, what is my opponent going to do? He's not going to take back the light bishop. He can't move his knight anywhere that's important or useful without basically just losing it or completely disengaging it. His rook is completely useless. His dark bishop's completely useless. And whatever he does, let's just push the pawn up. I'm just going to take this, put him into check. He's gonna have to move. I'm going to take a knight. He's gonna have to move again. I mean, like, it is just, I'm soul crushing this guy. I'm absolutely destroying him. And I felt pretty good about finding this sequence and series of moves after a brilliant sacrifice. This game got me to 1114. So we are back into the low 1100s, which feels pretty good. And then this morning I decided to play another match. So we're going to take a look at that one where I also played pretty well. Before we look at this one though, definitely check out the Discord. And when you join the Discord, make sure you react to the rules because that will give you access to the entire Discord. I've had a bunch of people join but not react to the rules, so they're just kind of stuck in this nebulous, non-existent place on the Discord server. But join the Discord, lots of fun over there, have lots of cool conversations, ask people for feedback. It's a good time, and we're slowly building a community over there, so I'd love to see you join. And so this game against TLO1, I was 1114 when I played it, obviously going for my rather typical French defense opening. Knight f6 is book when the light bishop is coming out super early. Obviously, our opponent is looking to get an early castling, which is totally fine. I play c5. We've got lots of book moves happening from both myself and my opponent. And in this position, I break off of book or break away from the best moves to an excellent move, but not the best move in the position. That is pressuring and forcing the light bishop to move yet again. Obviously, the only place they can move is either backwards or over here in front of the king. And that was my idea. I just wanted to force this piece to move again in the opening. That does end up happening. Bishop to c2 is best in this position, and that gives me an opportunity to develop my knight. You can see in this position, white is slightly favored, still winning, but we haven't made any big mistakes yet, and that always feels pretty good in my openings. My opponent decides to castle. This is totally acceptable. I bring my queen out, which is a good move, not the best move. Bishop to d6 was slightly better, just developing the dark bishop so that now I can castle. I wasn't super worried about castling in this position though, and here we have our first inaccuracy of the game, bishop to a4, which gives me an opportunity to either do bishop to d6, again allowing myself to castle, or the next best move in the position, which is now stop the threat of a check and having to move my queen off of the b file or double my pawns on the c file. My opponent does decide to initiate that trade, taking my knight. I get a bishop back, and one thing I have been maybe learning or becoming more comfortable with is the idea that if I lose a knight but I keep my bishops, I feel pretty good. Bishops are just, they're a little bit easier for me to play with right now. They're a little bit easier for me to kind of influence the board in a way that is more advantageous for me. Obviously, looking at your opponent and how their pawn structure is affecting your bishops is going to be important, but it also just means that I can influence way more of the board if I'm on the correct diagonal. I'm able to like stop plays from happening. That is something I'm becoming more familiar with and more comfortable with as I'm getting into these higher elos. So I'm always happy to win a knight, but keep a bishop in these positions. From here, my opponent decides to attack me with his knight, and I decided to counter attack. The reason being for this is, yes, I just said I want to keep my bishops alive and I am leaving this bishop out to dry, but if he decides to take, I can take back. We can actually just go through this scenario. I'm okay with this because it is going to give me a battery on this diagonal attacking the king, which is going to stall out the development of these other pieces that have not moved yet by forcing him to kind of weaken the king. And yes, we do lose the light bishop. There's not going to be any crazy light bishop diagonal tactics happening on this side of the board, but again, we're forcing pawns to move as opposed to some of the other minor pieces that are going to give my opponent more of an opportunity to fight back against me. And even more interesting is this didn't actually happen. My opponent decided to push their f pawn up, which is good. This is totally fine. b3 was also very acceptable. Just because you're attacking the pawn chain, you're stopping the queen from coming in here after the dark bishop does develop eventually one day, but now the dark bishop is very restricted. So from this position, I decide, okay, well, I'll keep my light bishop alive now. This is fine. I could have also castled in this position. The opponent decides to attack me, and I thought, okay, well, I could move back here, but I am a little bit worried about the bishop eventually becoming stuck because my queen is blocking in this b pawn, so I'm not actually going to be able to get it out of here without doing at least a couple of moves from my queen obviously not moving up to the c file, but moving down, then pawn up, then the bishop gets out. So I'm 3 moves away from actually being able to release that bishop. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to move backwards. If he decides to take, I'm going to take back with my knight. And lucky for me, my opponent just decided to continue to march this a pawn up, attacking my queen, forcing me to move down, still protecting both of these bishops, so I feel pretty good about that. And when my opponent decides to develop his knight to the edge of the board, I'm feeling really good in this position. Knights on the edge of the board are not very scary to me. The only thing he's attacking is this, or jumping over here, which is going to be a hanging knight. And I decide to bring my knight very much into the center of the board. I'm not really attacking anything, but I have a ton of influence here in the middle of the board, and that feels very good. I'm still defending this dark bishop. I'm still defending this light bishop with my queen. There's not a lot for me to be scared of right now, even though castling was the best, especially because this bishop is so locked in and the queen coming out is not going to be very scary. I decided, let's get this other piece involved. Let's get this guy actually influencing a lot of the center of the board. So my opponent decides to attack the light bishop. I decide to take back with my queen, which makes the most logical sense. That is the piece that was defending it. And the next move from my opponent is a blunder. I'm not sure what the idea here was. I don't know if he thought maybe I'm going to get this fork off if the queen decides to run away into outer space, but he does blunder his knight here. I take back with the queen, and now I am in an absolutely crushing position against my opponent. He decides to push this pawn up. I decide to just close the position. I think I could have taken back and it would have been totally fine, because even though it's doubled pawns on the edge of the board, he's definitely not going to be taking back with his rook. So I was like, yeah, I'll just close this position. It seems good to me. His knight comes out to attack. This is a good move, but when I castle, it really negates any of the threat that was there. H5 was also good. I don't know why. I guess like it is still defended, but it does seem to me like it kind of weakens this side of the pawn structure. I don't have all of the deep level understandings of when to push the h5 pawn up, but in this position it would have been the best move. Castling, again, totally acceptable, was totally fine. In this position I could have taken back, but I decided just to attack the queen. This was fine, very good. We're not making any major blunders or mistakes doing that. He retreats his queen. I decide my queen is on the wrong end of the board, so I'm going to get her involved now, reinforcing the pawn that is on the e file. I'm feeling very protected, very safe in this position. And when my opponent moves his queen backwards, which was actually a totally fine move and position, he actually resigned. I don't know why. I can't tell you what happened in his mind after he moved the queen back. Maybe he thought that there was some sort of tactic or scare. Maybe he was worried about me checking the king, and then when he takes back and I put him back into check, he thought that something else was going to happen. I don't really know what my next follow-up was going to be, because my opponent so quickly moved back and resigned. I didn't even get a chance to calculate what this move did or didn't do for me. Either way, I'm sitting at a very fun number of 1122 elo. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me just kind of walking through some of the last few games that I've played, my decision-making process. It's definitely way less stressful doing this than playing the games live, but I like both of them. They're lots of fun. There will be more live games. Absolutely. I'm probably going to record some even later today, but I do love you. I do appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope God blesses you in the rest of your day today. I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.